You mentioned Hillary Clinton's tweet. Has this changed your view or your investment profile in the pharmaceutical space?
No. I think it's actually a very interesting area. I think Bloomberg put out a piece on kind of drug pricing. There was a cover story the Journal today talked about, I think, the top 30 drugs. The average price increase over the last several years was something like 60% average. So drug pricing is certainly something that has the potential. I think it's polling well, I assume, for Hillary Clinton. So therefore, this is something that becomes a campaign issue. But I think if you think about, take a very big picture approach. We have the most innovative biopharma sort of industry in the world, and the reason for that is that you can make a lot of money in the drug business, and those profits get redeployed into R&D. They get redeployed into buying successful biotechnology companies. The investors make money, and they put more capital in, and you get a self-fulfilling prophecy of more and more innovation. And that's a cycle that I think we want to continue. Obviously, if you're a consumer and all of a sudden your drug goes up massively in price, that's something you're going to be sensitive to. But I think there's a lot of misinformation. Sort of the gross prices that are talked about in terms of where pharmaceutical companies mark drugs or sell drugs. Are very few people, if any, pay a gross price. Whether it's Medicare, Medicaid, PBMs. Whatever your health plan is, these are negotiated transactions.
Well, ethics seems to be one of the central issues, and clearly ethics is important to you. When you look at Herbalife, one of the reasons you've been, I'm going to say, on this crusade against Herbalife is because you think it is such an unethical company. But in terms of what we've seen in drug pricing, I mean, a hedge fund manager buying a company that sells a drug to patients who have HIV that is priced at $7, and he jacks it up to $700. Right. In your opinion, it's legal. He is exercising his right in the free markets. It's a loophole. Yep. Is it ethical? Is it the right thing to do?
That's not my favorite version of how to make money, for sure. And obviously, those kind of glaring examples are going to attract a lot of attention. There's been a lot of attention on Valeant. Valeant got dragged into the story. A very small part of Valeant's business is sort of repricing drugs. But even let's just sort of talk. I mean, one of the things Hillary Clinton spoke about in her health plan was a requirement that pharma companies spend a certain percentage of their revenues on R&D. Sort of this forced spending on R&D.
Which is not what Valeant does.
It's not what Valeant does, and Valeant was criticized by Gretchen Morgenson in an article in the Times. I'm mentioning all the competitive media. Make sure I don't get invited
Bloomberg
back.
Has no competition.
But her point was, well, Valeant's only spending 3% of revenues in R&D. Isn't this bad for America? And the answer is no. Actually, I think what's interesting about Valeant is we think Valeant has made a massive contribution to drug development, more so than almost any other company.
How so?
Here's how you think about it. So you got to follow the money, right? So Valeant doesn't pay a dividend, so there's no cash leaving the system. They're not buying back stock, right? So they generate a lot of cash flow. Where does it go? Well, they spend about 3% of revenues on R&D. They spend money building plants to make pharmaceuticals. They pay their employees. Stick with me for a second.
Just compare the 3% on R&D to other companies in their space.
Okay, this is my point. So Valeant believes that they are not good at drug development, i.e. are really coming up with new molecules and taking them all the way to the approval process. Has been historically a very low return business. That their view is that the startup biotechnology companies can much easier recruit the top scientists. Today, if you're a top scientist in the space and you want to make some money, you can go work for Pfizer and you can make a few $100,000 bonus if you come up with a drug, or alternatively you can get backed by a venture capitalist and you can form a company, you can discover a drug, and you can make $1 billion. It's